Confidence in the ring is key, but when it crosses into arrogance, things can take a dramatic and painful turn. Fighters who flaunt their cockiness, taunt their opponents, and underestimate the power of humility often find themselves staring at the ceiling lights. Ready for some showboating that ended in disaster? Let's dive into some spectacular moments when cocky fighters got knocked out and served a hard dose of reality. Chapter 1. Michael Venom, Page versus Michael Chiak. When you're entering the ring with 5 straight losses, you'd think humility would be your best friend. But not for Michael Chiak, who seemed more interested in taunting Michael Venom Page than, actually winning the fight. From the start, Chiak threw caution and his guard to the wind, dropping his hands and daring Page to take his best shot. Spoiler alert, Page obliged. In a bout at Haymaker Ringstar Fight Night 3 on June 15, 2018, Page faced Chiak in what turned out to be a textbook example of how arrogance can backfire. In the first round, Page landed a punishing right hand that sent Chiak sprawling onto the canvas. You'd think that would be enough to wipe the smug grin off his face, but Chiak wasn't done showboating. When the second round rolled around, Page delivered another perfectly timed right hand, this time knocking Chiak out cold. Talk about an oops, I shouldn't have done that moment. Chiak's taunts only fueled Page's focus, and the result was one epic, lights-out moment for the showboating fighter. If there's a lesson here, it's simple. Don't poke the bear, especially if that bear is Michael Venom Page. But Chiak isn't the only fighter to let his arrogance write a check his chin couldn't cash. Chapter 2. Rocky Ogden versus Mark Schliebs. Speaking of quick knockouts, you simply can't ignore the absolute schooling Rocky Ogden gave Mark Schliebs in June 2023 at Tim Tszyu Fight Week on the Gold Coast. Schliebs, the trash-talking king in the lead-up to their featherweight fight, didn't just promise victory, he practically guaranteed it. It all started with a tense hotel elevator encounter that nearly escalated into a brawl. The hostility continued into the open workouts, where security had to step in as both fighters clashed, and later at the weigh-in, where tempers flared again. Schliebs hyped up the tension further, declaring he'd make Ogden a big target, and promising a knockout that would be as easy as opening a bag of chips. The moment the bell rang, Ogden decided it was time to show Schliebs exactly how much all that trash talk was worth. Schliebs, still riding high on his own delusions, was quickly dropped 3 times in the first round. Each time, the punches came faster than Schliebs could keep up with, and before he knew it, he was eating his own words, literally, on the canvas. The knockout was brutal, and Ogden's performance left Schliebs with nothing but a lesson in humility. Perhaps next time, he'll save the trash talk for after he's secured a victory. Or better yet, just stick to letting his fists do the talking. If you think Schliebs' trash talking was bad, wait until you hear about Sonny Fredrickson, who entered his fight with Shojahan Ergashev acting like he was the next big thing. Chapter 3. Shojahan Ergashev versus Sonny Fredrickson. Fredrickson was so full of confidence in the pre-fight build-up that it seemed like nothing could bring him down. Nothing, that is, except a powerful puncher from Uzbekistan who didn't care one bit about Fredrickson's overblown ego. Fredrickson entered the ring on January 12, 2018 at the Turning Stone Resort Casino in Verona, New York, brimming with confidence. Ergashev didn't waste any time once the fight started. Fredrickson, who probably spent more time preparing insults than training, quickly found himself in over his head. By the third round, he was visibly struggling to keep up with Ergashev's relentless pace. And then, it happened. A flurry of punches from Ergashev landed with surgical precision, leaving Fredrickson defenseless and forcing the referee to step in and stop the fight. Fredrickson's cockiness may have carried him into the ring, but it was Ergashev's power that sent him packing. Moral of the story? Less trash talk, more training. Chapter 4. Jules the Jackal, Wallace versus Ben Nguyen. Now, here's a story that'll make every Karma is Real enthusiast cheer. The 2014 showdown between Jules the Jackal, Wallace, and Ben Nguyen for the Nitro MMA Bantamweight Championship. Wallace was the textbook example of an arrogant fighter, heavily tattooed, full of bravado, and completely disrespectful toward his opponent. In the lead-up to their fight, Wallace even attempted to headbutt Nguyen during the face-off, showing just how little respect he had for his rival. But guess what happens when you mix arrogance with a technically superior fighter? You get knocked out fast. Wallace, full of confidence, barely lasted 25 seconds in the first round before Nguyen's punches sent him sprawling. In less than half a minute, Wallace's arrogance and brash attitude were wiped out as quickly as they had appeared. The cherry on top? Wallace also lost his Nitro MMA Bantamweight Championship in the process. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. Both his ego and his jaw. Chapter 5. John Riel Casimiro versus Amnat Ruenroeng. Next, let's rewind to May 2016 for one of the most satisfying karma moments in boxing. On May 25, 2016, at the Diamond Court of the National Tennis Center in Beijing, China, John Riel Casimiro stepped into the ring for a highly anticipated rematch with Amnat Ruenroeng. This wasn't just any fight, it was a battle for the International Boxing Federation flyweight title, and Casimiro was determined to make it count. Ruenroeng, notorious for his dirty tactics, seemed more interested in turning the fight into a wrestling match than an actual boxing bout. He shoved Casimiro, threw him to the canvas, and used every underhanded move in the book. If Ruenroeng could find a way to bend the rules, he did, and with a grin on his face. But what's the saying? Karma always comes back around. In the fourth round, Casimiro had finally had enough of Ruenroeng's dirty tricks. With precision and timing, he caught Ruenroeng with a devastating hook that sent shockwaves through the ring. And if that wasn't enough, Casimiro followed it up with a punishing body shot that left Ruenroeng crumpled on the canvas. His reign as International Boxing Federation flyweight champion officially over. The crowd erupted, Casimiro stood tall, and Ruenroeng was left to contemplate whether bending the rules had been worth the brutal knockout. Spoiler, it wasn't. Chapter 6. David Haye versus Carl Thompson. But hold up, we're not done yet. We've got a classic in the making, David Haye versus Carl Thompson fighting for the International Boxing Organization title in 2004. Now, you've probably heard of Haye, the British powerhouse who, at the time, was a rising star in the boxing world. Undefeated and with an ego the size of a heavyweight, Haye came into his fight against veteran Carl Thompson, convinced that he'd walk away with yet another easy victory. In fact, the fight was billed as a don't blink event because everyone expected Haye to dispatch Thompson with ease. Except, someone forgot to tell Thompson. Haye came out swinging, determined to add another first-round knockout to his resume, but Thompson wasn't impressed by Haye's power or his arrogance. After weathering the initial storm of punches, Thompson saw his opening and delivered a stiff left hook, followed by an uppercut that left Haye wobbling on his feet. Before Haye knew what hit him, he was out on his feet, and his team was forced to throw in the towel to save him from further punishment. That's right. Haye, the undefeated prodigy, was handed his first career defeat by a fighter he had completely underestimated. Humbling, isn't it? Chapter 7. Jason Solomon versus Amitesh Chaubey. Of course, no compilation of humbling knockouts would be complete without mentioning Jason Solomon, also known as the Delhi Don. Solomon strutted into the cage to fight Amitesh Chaubey with more swagger than most could handle. He waved to fans, posed for cameras, and even took a victory lap before the fight had even started. But if you've been following the theme here, you know what's coming next. Just 9 seconds into the fight, Solomon's cockiness met reality in the form of a powerful overhand right from Chaubey that left Solomon flat on his back. Chaubey followed up with a flurry of hammer fists, and just like that, Solomon's ego and his consciousness were knocked out cold. The fight was over before Solomon even had a chance to realize what hit him. It's a perfect example of how showboating before you've earned it can backfire in spectacular fashion. So, the next time you're watching a fight, remember this. It's always smarter to let your fists do the talking, unless, of course, you're aiming to become a viral knockout sensation for all the wrong reasons. Thanks for hanging out, and stay tuned for more knockout-worthy sporty content.